So, this all leads into our questions that come up at our next live stream, the Organizing 101. That how do we balance all of these different things? How do we balance the elections with with unions, with activism, and that sort of thing, right? How do we organize as an independent party, even though we know that there's major suppression in the U.S.? How do we balance things like decentralization and centralization? We were talking about Marx versus anarchists, and they both had good points, and they both have experiences we can learn from. And it's not entirely clear that one is always correct versus the other, right? So there's a lot of organizing challenges here about putting the theory into practice, and then vice versa, right? From our practice, updating our theory to better match what our conditions are, and to teach others how to get involved. So that's kind of our topic for our next stream there. So I hope you're looking forward to that in a month.
I want to jump back one real quick.
Yeah.
And make sure we don't gloss over it. Independent organizing outside of capitalist power structures is absolutely essential. Like, it's not a strategic thing. Do we work with within the Democratic Party of Socialists or not? You're never going to achieve socialism from within a wholly committed capitalist party, right? And you can look at places like France, where they have a socialist party that was neoliberal, right? The word was and there's a long, interesting history about how the French Socialist Party became the Socialist Party, and that it basically is just they stole the name, right? And they did what the Democrats did to the Green New Deal. They took the name and they watered down the content, to quote Howie. But it's really, we have to organize independently, and that means the work is harder, right? Just to inoculate it, we really have to do that. The work is harder. But independence is a key part of it, right? Very seldom will anyone, out of the goodness of their heart, or any system out of the virtue of the system, give you the keys to its destruction, right? So if you're working within a mechanism of the capitalist system, which both the Republican and the Democratic parties are, then you're never going to get that end goal, right? You're always, another cat, both got them. The lack of independence, while it makes the work harder, is essential for the work to succeed. So, we've linked it a few times. If people haven't read it, I highly recommend going to greensocialist.net. You can download Howie's ebook, The Case for an Independent Left Party, for free. It's short, right? I think the longest section might be 2 pages. Most of them are 1 page. The whole thing's less than 30 pages. It's a very short pamphlet. It's broken down into very, very digestible pieces. And Howie does a really good job laying out the case for why political independence isn't a strategic issue. It's a foundational part of socialism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Otherwise, we're collaborating, right?
Yeah, and that's that's learning from history. That we had mentioned that some of the socialist offshoots had gone the path of creating parties and trying to get involved in parliamentary politics. And what very often happens there is that rather than pulling the system toward the left, those parties have over time just adapted to capitalism, and they've just they got used to making market reforms and things like that instead of creating really systemic reforms that, again, we need to change the whole social infrastructure, not just changing out people or whatever.
Well, and we see it today in modern democratic socialists,
mm-hmm.
right? Which, just like earlier, when I talked about people try to put all these conditional clauses on the front of capitalism to defend it, Socialism by nature is democratic, right? I get the term came to differentiate from the Soviet model and the Chinese model, but socialism is democratic by nature. And when we look at some of the, key democratic socialists that have been elected into government, what we see is a rightward shift. What we see is, towing the line at almost every point, losing battle after battle, and essentially becoming collaborationists in the system they claim that they wanted to get rid of. And they have to do it or they'll find themselves out of power, right? So we have to build our power outside of those parties. If we rely on the capitalist parties for our power, then our power is always undermined. It's always very fragile. And so when we independent power that's based on mass movements, that's based on relationships in our community, it's a kind of power that can't just be brushed away by Nancy Pelosi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Because then we won't be scared to mobilize against Nancy Pelosi. AOC is never going to mobilize against Nancy Pelosi. She needs Pelosi for her committee seats. She needs her Pelosi to have a voice, and so she will always toe the line when the time comes. She might like Bernie Sanders. She might talk a good game, but when the time comes to act, when the time comes to cast a vote, when the time comes to directly challenge someone or to fade away into the background, they'll always make the same choice, and it's because they've tied their power to a capitalist party that has no interest in seeing itself undone.
Yep, exactly. So lots of things to learn from history in Organizing 101. So it ran a little bit over, so I don't know if we have time for questions.
We should probably wait. We've already gone 2 hours.
Yeah.